Before we get started, I have a favor to ask. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. This helps the podcast grow. And if you have any people that you would like to see me bring on, please let me know in the comments. Enjoy the podcast.
One of my big grow up moments was when I was willing to scream and holler at a freshman. But then the next year when I was working for the Bengals, I wouldn't think about doing that to AJ Green. Right? There's a lot of kids that are playing football. I'll sit down and be like, "Do you like football?" And they're like, "Yeah, I love it. It's all I know. It's all I know. It's all I've known." Yeah. Okay, well, what do you love about it? And they can't really tell you. I don't know how much kids love football. I think they love how football makes them feel loved.
There's a lot of electrolyte supplements out there, so I know you have options, but you don't need to be wasting your time and money on supplements that give delayed results. That's why Protekt Hydration is a superior electrolyte supplement. Since it's a liquid and not a powder, it's ready to work immediately. And since its electrolyte ratios match those lost in sweat, it's designed to do exactly what it's supposed to do. So stop wasting your time with powders and head over to protekt.com/truth and start supplementing like it matters. A wise man once told me that there's 3 things you should always pay for quality in, and those are the things that keep you off the ground. It's mattresses, shoes, and tires. And it actually makes sense when you realize that by the time you're 80 years old, you'll have spent 26.6 years of your life asleep. So why would you spend night after night tossing and turning on a bad mattress when Tough the Needle gives Truth Serum listeners 15% off on the world's best mattresses? So start taking your sleep seriously and hit the Tough the Needle link in the show notes. Use code Truth_Serum15 and get 15% off all mattresses and sleep technology. Coach Luke Day, welcome to the Truth Serum podcast.
Thank you, sir.
And you are, what's the correct term? But you are the strength conditioning director for the University of South Carolina Football?
I think I just go by the old school term of just head strength coach.
Head strength
South
coach.
Carolina Football. Yeah. Head football strength coach.
And that's what it is. I mean,
that's it.
You are a strength coach. That's it. No matter what the other fancy things are with it, that's the job.
I mean, we do a lot of different stuff, but I don't have the stomach for the pretentious suggestiveness of some of these titles that people have come up with.
Yeah.
You know, applied director of human science performance. It's too much. I can't do it.
The guy who makes people strong on the University of South Carolina Football.
Just strength coach, train the team.
Yeah. Well, man, to start off with, your all season's been awesome.
Man, we had a good year.
It's been a great year. And you went from, I saw in 2022, 8-5, 2023, 5-7, 2024, 9-3 as of now. And I think it's safe to say that you are in part responsible, because it is a team, you are in part responsible for that. And even in an interview, Coach Beamer, who was recently named AP SEC Coach of the Year, I read it said, "There's no doubt in my mind we had an elite summer, and credit goes to obviously our players, but Luke Day and his strength conditioning staff."
Oh, he said that?
He did say that.
Oh, man.
Coach Beamer said that.
Love. No, it was, we have had and do have a really special group of players. And they decided that they wanted this thing to be special, and they made it that way. So it's been, and we had some great experiences in the off season and into the preseason, but it was this perfect collection of new guys that came in, transfers, guys that stayed, that could have left, that have been there since Coach Beamer's taken over, and then young guys kind of coming out, having kind of a coming out party as far as showing up and at big time moments. It's been this perfect collection of a really, really special, serious group of guys that were on a mission the whole time. And you know, I'm going to be so sad to see so many of them go, because they're seniors, they're done, they're declaring for the NFL draft. But man, it's been awesome. It's been really cool.
Yeah. And one of the things, like, to mention that it is, you get 4 years at most. Well, outside of red shirts and pandemics. But traditionally, you get like a 4-year time frame to work with an athlete, and there's a lot, there's a bond that has to come from that.
Mm-hmm.
And from developing over that 4 years and seeing that player develop, because as I discussed with Coach Chip, too, you get a player at age 18, they're novices. Even your seniors, they're still novices in strength and conditioning. Their training age is so young, so there's so much room for improvement during that 4 years that you're part of a huge evolution for them.
Yeah, you are. It's a gigantic transition. I think the biggest difference in a human being's life, obviously, is infant to 4 years old, and then the second steepest transition is probably 18 to 23. Is that age gap, that difference is so drastic because they're coming out of high school and they're living with their family or their guardians or whoever it is, and then you're taking that away from them for the first time. And so whatever foundation, whatever character that's been instilled in them or lack thereof, you're going to discover that with them in real time. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if you got a kid and then you're throwing them into this super pressurized and now highly public adventure that they're on, that's like, they're sinking or they're swimming, and it's happening at the speed of a tweet. You know what I mean? And so you're right there alongside with them, and you can see it. You can see it when they're walking in the door, how turbulent or how quickly this is going to go well for them, or this is going to be really hard on this person just by having the initial conversation. That it's just taking in a family dynamic, taking in the development of their body at that time, the maturity, how well you can see them picking up what you're saying. You know, I used to work for a legendary coach named George O'Leary. Are the lights on behind their eyes, or are they kind of droopy, just they don't get it? And you're like, this process is going to be really hard on them. You know, they might have great athletic ability, but it's you're asking them to live at full speed and do it well while somebody's trying to keep you from doing it well. You know what I mean? And so if you don't, if you take, for example, there's a worldwide shortage of great offensive linemen right now, which is it's an interesting thing because big guys they're not active enough now, or they're not wrestling, they're not playing basketball, and then this COVID thing happened, and then they got just sedentary, became such a just normal thing. And so now you're bringing these ginormous people that have zero command of their body. I bring the offense. I'm not picking on offensive linemen. I'm just saying offensive line. If you got a kid that's super fat, okay, you're putting him into a universe where he has to unlearn everything he does, and without his support system. So when you got a kid that's like, all right, great family, great mom and dad, great living habits, great lifestyle, lean. It's a lot easier to put mass on somebody because you're not changing drastic lifestyles.
Yes, absolutely.
Than it is to take it off of them and then try to put the right lean mass on. And I think it's happening all over the country. It's a really interesting time in football, particular with that group. It is.
And do you think that's because? Yes, it is, because you have to be big. Yeah, like you have to be. You have to have an overweight or obese BMI to be an offensive lineman. That's just pretty much a requirement anyway.
I'm not sure. I think that, particularly in the SEC, because I've really, really studied this year, it was kind of groupthink collective wide in this league and in the Power Four in general of like, bigger is better, no matter what. Just get the biggest freak of nature people that you can possibly assemble. And I think we're all starting to kind of pause and be like, that's not it. And there's some research that came out, like, not the specifics of the, I don't want to say the wrong percentage, but it's an overwhelming percentage of drafted NFL offensive linemen. They were all under 300 pounds coming out of high school. And they have the best speed measurables. So it's still, even at that position, it does not trump athleticism.
Yeah.
The best athletes are still the best offensive linemen, not the biggest ones, because the biggest ones don't have a command of themselves, and they're getting themselves hurt, and they're hurting other people. Because if you're the biggest guy on the field and you don't have control of you're going to fall on top of somebody else.
You're blowing a knee.
There's a lot. I mean, there's just a lot of that going on. So it's outrageous to where I would say 10 years ago, an above average offensive lineman decides, hey, I'm playing pretty well, I'm going to get in the transfer portal, and he is well into the high six figures on the market to come out of the transfer portal. So it's a fascinating time that we're in with that. And so it's a huge point of focus of developing the big guys the right way.
Do you feel like maybe the strength conditioning and nutrition side are potentially like missing the boat on those guys? Because I know it would be easy for a lot of dietitians to be like, hey, this is an overweight guy. He's in a position where you need to be overweight. You're good. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think I get it. Yes. There is mass moves things, and that's what they do. They put their hands on people and make people move where they're not supposed to go. But what that mass is made of matters.
Exactly. Yep.
It just does. And if you're just head down saying, just get them bigger, and you're making up a number, it's not helping anyone. It's not. You're hurting the kid, you're hurting yourself, because he's not going to move well, and movers and maulers are always going to be more beneficial than just big people getting in the way. It's being proven on a weekly basis in college football that it's not working. And I think collectively, there's starting to be sort of a pause, like, all right, how can we do this better? And that was an eye-opening experience. Like, I was working for Chip for the Bengals, and like, you see all these, that offensive lineman was at this huge school, that's your offensive line. And after year 3, they all start talking about how they want to drop. They want to drop weight, and they start shedding it. You know what I mean? There's got to be something wrong that the average height weight for an SEC offensive line is larger than the NFL.
Oh yeah.
So we're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think a lot might be you get typecasted into the position. Like no, and it's I coached my kids 5, 6, or 6, 7, 8-year-old team this year, and it's like no kid is like, when I grow up, I want to be an offensive guard.
Right.
And which I had to tell these kids, I'm like, man, it's like, it's hugely important.
Oh yeah.
And I actually had a thing once because I had some that weren't really filling their position, because at that age, it's just the kids who weigh the most are my son, who is a string bean, but he's tall. So therefore he's a bigger kid. He was offensive guard.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what, buddy, I'm sorry, but you're not short. So we got to put you somewhere. Yeah. And like, they weren't really feeling themselves as important. And I'm like, okay, well, here for this play, you guys just step out.
Yeah.
And the quarterback's looking at the defense.
Yeah.
Like really serious. Like, well, I can't. I'm like, exactly. Okay. You guys get back in there. You're really important. but you kind of get typecasted at a young age as the offensive lineman if you're just big. If you're just an overweight kid, you're the offensive lineman starting in middle school.
I went out, I'm going to play football. I'd watch NFL films after school, and we'd play football at recess, and then I'm coming out for the team and play tackle football. And they're like, okay, what position? I'm like, I'm a quarterback. Let me see you throw. Throw it. And they're like, all right, go stand over there with them. And they're like, what am I now? And they're like, you're a lineman. You're going to put your hand in the dirt now. Okay. Do I get to touch the ball? Never. You're never going to touch the ball.
If you want the absolute best protein source, then I have it for you. It's Axis Deer from my friends at Maui Nui Venison in Hawaii. It's not only the best protein source, but also the best tasting. And Maui Nui is now offering Truth Serum listeners a limited selection at My Favorite Cuts of Venison. Remember, deer are wild, naturally organic, and grass-fed animals, so supply is always limited. So head over to MauiNuiVenison.com/truth. That's MauiNuiVenison.com/truth. nuivenison.com/truth and start eating deer. Half-Face Blades makes 100% American-made knives for the world's best military operators, hunters, and chefs, people who need knives to make a living or stay alive. That's why I trust them with my own everyday carry knife. So if things like buying American and high performance matter to you, head over to halffaceblades.com and throw away your cheap gas station knives.
Oh, okay.
I'm laughing as an overweight kid.
Oh, yeah,
like
dude,
I knew this.
it's the same kind of deal. But I think if you had some bigger kids embrace that early on,
Yes.
it'd be a game changer.
Because I feel like other positions, this is the point I was trying to make. I think other positions are developed and linemen just happen.
Yeah.
Like I really feel like that might be
I think it is the most complex work of art position on the field is the offensive line.
Explain that.
Because it's symphonic. I liked what Jim Harbaugh said about it a few weeks ago. It's the only position on the field where every other position is depending on it to play well, but it doesn't depend on any other position to play well.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying? It's the only position to where you have 5 of them and they have to do it together at the same time. And this one's coming off the ball. He's having a great game, but this one isn't stepping in the right direction. He's supposed to be right next to him and get hip to hip and take on this defensive tackle. And then he comes off and works up to the linebacker. And all. It's kind of like Joe Rogan's, what MMA is. It's high speed problem solving, right? Mm-hmm. Jiu-jitsu. That's what it is. It's high speed problem solving with physical consequences of what decision you made.
Yeah.
And so it's a dance floor with 6'5", 300-pound plus people trying not to step on each other and have as good enough feet to be able to move with people across from them that are much more athletic than them. I'm fascinated by the offensive line. And Lonnie Teasley does a fantastic job with our guys, and Greg Atkins with the offensive line here at South Carolina. And so it was a huge, you're talking about the summer that Coach Beamer was talking about, that started with the offensive line. We kind of had our own little intensive O-line camp when not everybody was back yet, and just started with them and started from the ground up. And it was just get familiar with your body, get familiar with how you move. This is like you taking their shoes off and getting them their feet stronger and their ankles, and then learning how to bend and understanding leverage and all of those types of things. Because most kids, even the best that there are, this isn't just offensive linemen, are foreign to themselves. They are foreign to leverage. And I know that's like wrestlers don't understand that, but like you don't understand how much people don't engage in physical contact with someone else. You know what I mean? And then we can't understand why they won't play physical on the football field. And I just I'm a phys ed guy. That was my background of education. So it's like the decay and the bastardization of physical education and playing multiple sports and time on task and being physically active. It's all showing up.
Yeah.
With even the best athletes, it's all showing up. So
you talk about playing multiple sports. There's studies, there's evidence that year-round sports are not good for developing athletes.
You have 10-year-old kids, and we're in South Carolina. Baseball's a big deal in the South, and there's kids my son's age, and they will play more games than the Yankees.
Gosh, yeah.
Like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
Like, not to mention they're just not very well-rounded human beings.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have a lot of different things. They can't go on trips. They can't go on vacations. Yeah. They got a baseball tournament. They only understand this part. They don't understand other walks of life of people. It sucks. It's not fun.
Yeah, and
it's not fun.
It was Dr. Andrews, who's one of the historically one of the best orthopedic surgeons.
Yeah.
He did a lot of surgeries on pitchers in baseball, and he put a big thing out years ago talking about the importance of multi-sport athletes for developing athleticism.
Yeah.
And baseball is what he particularly talked about, how year-round baseball is so problematic. And he was describing how like Tommy John surgeries were at first kind of something to extend the career of a Major League Baseball player
Right.
who's on his way out.
Yeah.
Said now we're starting to see it in high school athletes, middle school athletes sometimes having these surgeries because they've already pitched so many pitches.
Yes.
And the structure of the elbow is not even designed for the amount of pressure that is put into a pitch. It's not made and built for that. And we do it, and then we keep putting those kids through it, and it becomes a problem. And
well, I don't understand, like, everyone's like, well, if we don't do this, if we don't go to this showcase, if we don't join the town's travel team or whatever, we're not going to get looked at. We're not going to get picked up. They're not going to be recruited. They're not going to, their chance at the pros. Like, well, first off, the entire roster's name is like Ordonez or Rodriguez or Lopez. So we're doing this. We're not doing this as well as them. I don't understand why is that happening? And
statistically, your chances are pretty low.
Well, it's like, but my thing is like, but why?
Yeah.
Like they're playing the game.
Yeah.
And I get it. They're probably playing even more. With baseball, it's year round as well. It's not. I'm not saying it's a healthier way to do it, but this fear of missing out stuff that these parents instill. The most laughable thing for me is like, because my son's, he's like, oh, your son's playing rec ball? And I go, what does that mean? And like, recreation. I says, does your son get paid? And they're like, no, it's his travel. I was like, then it's all recreation. Okay, brother, if you're not getting paid, we're all doing this recreationally. So don't like, oh, it's just rec ball.
You paying the mortgage with your son's
like, what
little league payments?
About, dude? It's all recreation. It's so dumb. So dumb.
No, it is. And being an athlete, and I am interested in what your definition of an athlete, because the way I try to describe, I don't know how to define what athleticism is, and I don't know how to describe what an athlete is. I say you just know it when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really, personally, I've struggled with that for years. I've tried to define it and I can't. What's your definition?
The definition of an athlete. I would say it's you engage in, like, it's a physical endeavor, right? A physical endeavor that's going to demand you to move your body. It's going to demand you to either, whether it's against something or someone else, and it's a physical hardship that you're withstanding, and you're able to repeat it over and over. Like, that's a good question.
It's tough.
It is.
Because almost any way I've tried to describe it, I'm then like, well, then I left something out.
Yeah.
Like when you compare that to some sport, I'm like, well, that doesn't really account for this that this athlete does. I don't know.
Yeah.
Almost, it might just be sport specific. That might be why we can't define it.
But it all is, you're using your body to do something competitive. That's what I would say.
And I would say very efficiently.
Yeah.
Like you have to move it efficiently, because
right.
That's a huge part. Like you can tell if I watch someone playing their sport, I can't even, without even seeing them score a point or whatever, I can still tell who the athletic ones are.
Well, now I think that we're splitting. You're talking about who's more athletic.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if you're an athlete, like in the Greek, the Olympics, the original, it's you're organizing the human movement capabilities in a competitive forum. That's an athlete.
Yeah.
Now, who does that better?
Yeah.
I think then you say, oh, he's more athletic.
Yeah. How do you define athleticism then?
Yeah.
Beyond
I
that?
think it's who has the best command of those human movement capabilities to organize them into what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's how we, when we meet a recruit and he goes, what's your guys' strength program? I go, well, why are we talking to you? And because you're incredible at what you do. right? Everybody in the country's offered you a scholarship, and they want you on their team. And if you put their uniform on, that team gets better immediately, right? So if you stay the same, then we're just renting your services and you're being used. You're not being developed, right? And the number one question we always ask of every transfer visit, portal visit guy is why'd you leave? Why are you leaving this place? And they're like, man, I just want to be developed. And so it's like, all right, you're incredible at what you do because of who you are. And who you are is a product of how you developed into how you move. And human beings, the thing that classifies us as humans for us that we've kind of, I put it into three things, is we cover ground, right? We change levels and we carry. That's what makes us a human being, right? We cover ground for miles and miles and miles, right? That's why we're at the top of the food chain. We're the only thing that can, persistence hunting. We run something, it's in our DNA. We can run something down till it dies, right? We have hands. We can carry things. We can cut that thing up and we can carry it home. We can feed our family. That's why we went across the continent. We've got coast to coast because we just kept packing stuff up and moving, stuff up and moving. We carry and we cover ground. We cover, when we're covering ground and we hit the Rocky Mountains, we change levels, right? We can also go under. So what I'm saying is it happens in a vacuum, the 40-yard dash, right? Playing with leverage, vertical jump, high point the ball. Hey, get your pads down. You're too high. Go up and get it. All the cues are in there as to what human beings do. But when they do that, man, hey, way to go up and get the ball. Hey, way to get up underneath him. Hey, way to use your hands. Way to drive your feet. Hey, way to run him down. Great hustle. Everybody does. This is what humans do. They cover ground, they change levels, and they carry. So why don't we, that's it. That's what humans do. So that's how we're going to train you. It's not a squat. Squat is a minor detail in the category of changing levels because you're lowering your center of mass and you're getting back up. Turkish get up is a level change. A vertical jump is a level change. Climbing a wall is a level change. It's all level change.
Yeah.
Right? That's a basic human movement possibility, right? Covering ground, lateral, agility, start, stop, sprint, a marathon. It's all ground cover, right?
Yeah.
Farmer's walk, sled push is a carry. Your hand, tackling is carrying. Blocking is carrying.
Yeah.
It's how in football, this is how specifically you organize the three movement concepts that human beings do: block, tackle, throw, catch, run.
Yeah.
Right? Whoever does those five things better, right? Bill Parcells, the 5 fundamentals of football, right? Wins the game.
Yeah.
So you're looking for now who can do that? Who can carry the fastest, the heaviest, the strongest, the longest, the most physical? Well, that's based off of genetic ability, length, lever systems, conditioning, aerobic capacity, anaerobic power, all of those types of things where you get down into the weeds, but everybody's starting in the, should we be using, what's our rate of force development for the, front squat? And it's like, shut up. That doesn't matter. That doesn't, because he doesn't have a general grasping of the major three things first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We talked to a guy a couple weeks ago. He's got some ungodly squat, 800 pounds. And I said, that's awesome. I said, do me a favor. I said, I want you to sit down on the ground without using your hands and get back up.
Oh.
He rolled around like an egg, and I just looked at him. I said, we can help you. It won't be because we make you go from 800 to 850.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, if the event is squatting, then 800 to 850 is the endeavor.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Right? But if I have to now squatting's part of it because it's a great way to add lean mass. Got to have people with large volumes of high body mass to move people. They've got to get underneath somebody. They got to be able to bend. Squat's a great way to do that. But if you can no longer at will move your body and have a great, we call it a relationship with the ground, you can't do what we're asking, then people are not going to classify you as athletic.
Yeah.
Or as an athlete.
That's interesting too, because I do think almost every sport puts too much emphasis, or has in the past, too much emphasis on the weights of the weight room and the numbers, and they have they have it on the walls. I remember in high school it was the top bencher, the top,
the leaderboards,
and all these things.
All
now I've never thought of this before, but now I'm looking back. The people who were always the tops in those were not our best athletes.
Correct.
It wasn't our quarterback.
Correct. But there's a benchmark.
Yeah.
You need to be strong.
Yeah.
Weak people can't do it. But how strong do you need to be?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you're strong at the expense of mobile, if you're mobile at the expense of strength, if you're fast at the expense of repeatable, you can't do it. And so it's like, don't be something that's going to cancel you out.
Yeah.
And so hyper focused on, we always say this is college football, because of, the max out videos and all that kind of stuff. They get really, really, viral and be, oh, wow, it must be a great strength program. Look at the amount of plates on each side of the bar. And the kids are all excited and they're rocking back and forth and all that kind of stuff. Everyone is obsessed with how much load a kid can move. And we're just like, what if we just flip that on his head and see how much movement we can load?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
So, yeah.
I love that. And you guys do that. Like I've been able to come by your facility and see how you guys do things and be a part of that and watch. And your training replicates that. It does. You have people do that. Yeah. And one thing that I think is so cool, and I got to sit in and watch and kind of help with one whole aspect of it, was that competitive toughness.
Oh yeah,
that you guys do.
Yep.
And I don't want you to talk about anything proprietary, but that's something you all put out there, so I know you can talk about that. So can you explain what your all's competitive toughness challenges are, like what that is, and why you've put that in there? Yeah.
Well, it continues to evolve, but when we first started it in the program here, everybody. Bobby Bowden started the mat drills. We'll do a little history of some off-season training stuff, okay? And the mat drills this is, a lot of programs post-Title IX canceled their wrestling programs, right? So, but when there was a lot of wrestling programs still, the wrestling room was a great way to get it out of you. You turn the heat up, put the team in there. So that was the drills happened on the mats, the mat drill, right? And then, there's been major coaching trees. Urban Meyer had mat drills, and then all those assistants would break off and have mat drills. Nick Saban had the fourth quarter program, starting with Ken Manny up in Michigan State, and then obviously Tommy Moffitt and all those years at LSU, and then at Alabama. So then, like, at one time in college football, you were either from the Urban Meyer River or the Nick Saban River. And so all off seasons were either mat drills or the fourth quarter program, right? And so if something was going to be competitive, like tug of war or whatever it is, you'd pick a couple of guys, usually sort of dispensable, and everybody get around them and they'd cheer forever. And so when we showed up at South Carolina, the coolest thing about Coach Beamer is, yes, his dad is a legend of a football coach, legendary in Frank Beamer. And, Coach Beamer was with Kirby Smart. He was with Lincoln Riley. He was with, obviously, his father. But there was never like, well, this is the way we did it here. We're going to do that. Yeah. It was, what do we want to create here that can exist, that needs to be here? And so what we say, what if, let's do stuff competitive, but every single person is doing it the exact same time. And so it would look like 100 people doing tug of war at the same time. It's absolute chaos, or we call it the tractor pull, where you put a harness on and you're going away from each other.
Yeah, I saw that. It was wild.
It's competitive or it's cooperative. So we're at you and me, let's try to beat each other. And then it's you and me, let's try to get this thing done. Yeah. And which is, we're just trying to create reference points that you can go back to in a TV timeout and say, this is like that when we were feeling like this and we had to kind of come down next to each other and strength training should be, you are providing the gift of a reference point so that when you're in a competitive, really, really pressurized moment, it doesn't feel that way because you're able to go back to that thing that happened. You know what I mean? And when you can recalibrate what you thought was hard or what you thought was, intense or what you thought was too much, if you can continue to slide that scale, you're developing.
Yeah.
And so when you have a whole team that's like, recognize, oh, this is sled push. This is sled push rep 10, like on a TV timeout. Like that's how we'll gas guys up. You know what I mean? This is carry what you kill. This is that drill, man, when we had to restart it, blah, 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 blah. Those are the things. We're all saying these terms. We're all yelling the desired result at kids, be tough, resilient, grit, all these types of things. But it's like, what are you doing to facilitate that enlightenment for them? You can yell it at them all you want, but it's not, if it's not absorbing, if they're not taking it literally into their hearts and minds, it's not happening. So yeah, that's what the point of competitive toughness. Sometimes it's really intense and really hard and really rugged. Sometimes it's a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. You know what I mean? So it can
but
be.
That's developing different things and testing different skills 100%. And having to maybe compete in something that you don't have a lot of experience in already, so we can really see who can grit it out. And a quote that I use a lot, that a Marine Force Recon friend of mine told me, that's toughness is relative to past experience. And if you see like an adult, like a grown man, like, dude, he's really tough. It's like, it's probably a result of the past experience he's had. And that could be good, that could be bad.
Right.
It could be bad experiences he wish he didn't have to become tough. And a lot of times to develop good athletes, and I would even say good humans, sometimes you have to introduce you have to introduce toughness. You have to put people in positions to be tough and overcome it. So again, the litmus changes, and what was once tough isn't anymore, and there's a new tough, and you have to keep building on that.
Yeah, can you facilitate enough experiences for someone to be able to override how they feel? Can System 2, right, the old Daniel Kahneman behavioral economics Nobel Peace Prize winner, System 1, you don't really have System 1 and System 2. He just theorized it of basically the animal brain. It's cold, let's get warm. It's hot, let's cool off. I'm thirsty, stop, homeostasis. And athletic endeavors are asking you to override your animal brain, right? So we define toughness as what I'm doing is more important than how I feel. And if you can do that, you can do anything. If you can override, and literally every decision that you make is that equation. I don't feel like it. It's not worth it. You literally do that about everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're on this whatever number episode of the day and you're like, no, because when it does come out, I'll be glad it happened, and you're powering through it, whatever. What you're doing is more important than how you feel about everything all the time. And if it's not more important than how you feel, you won't do it. But if you can't do it, you're a slave to yourself. You're so owned by and that's ancient, right? Paul said, the thing I can't stop doing, I don't want to do. The thing I want to do, I can't do, right? My flesh. It's the spirit and the flesh. It's toughness versus all these. We're all saying it in a lot of different ways, but it's an ancient human struggle.
Yeah.
That people are going through, And so that's all we're trying to do is facilitate the full human experience of the thoughts you can't believe you're having, the overriding those, connecting with someone else while doing really human stuff and moving really human, because it's all, our training is it just goes to, not beating a dead horse here, but like, it's not like the proprietary thing of South Carolina strength coaches. I've taken so much from Chip's interaction with a guy named Tim Anderson, who he runs this thing called Original Strength, and it's basically revisiting the developmental sequence of human beings, right? And then if you looked at training like that, it'll change the way you train. It'll change the way you think about training because, okay, wait a second. How did these phenomenal athletes come online? What's the first thing that this unbelievable player did? He took a big deep breath and he screamed in the delivery room, right? That's the first strength training exercise he ever did was he filled his diaphragm. Everything goes back to diaphragmatic breathing, right? But now we've made that some sort of mystical thing, breath training and all that.
Yeah.
It's just breathe with the diaphragm, right? You want to go from panic, fight or flight to performance, breathe, right? If you want to sustain it, breathe. You want to squat 600 pounds right before you go, take a big deep breath, like breathe, right? So this isn't mine. I'm crediting, this is Tim Anderson, and then Chip showed it to me, but breathe through the diaphragm, right? Then it was get control, right? An infant, what do you got to do? First, you got to support the head, right? Nothing can happen until you got control of that big old baby head. But think how strong proportionally they had to be.
Yeah.
That head is a third of their body, right? A third of it, and they're holding it up. Tummy time. They hate it, and they're trying to hold it up, right? And then move, right? The first we move bipedal, opposite arm, opposite leg, because this side of our brain controls this side of our body. How'd that come online? We rolled over. Our nervous system organized itself with our musculoskeletal system via rolling. Rolling got us on our hands and knees to rock. Rocking understood what the hip flexion and extension of the hip and knee had to do to walk. Crawling tied the X together so that this part of our brain with this side of our body to rehearse that pattern till we got enough stabilization and strength to stand upright, start moving forward. Now we're cooking, sprinting, jumping, all of that. So every single day, we are going to revisit the developmental sequence of how you became to be that extraordinary of an athlete. And then we're going to load it each step of the way. And so then let's just and so it's not, is it leg back by day or chest, shoulder, try? It's crawl, carry, level change, crawl, carry, level change, cover ground, level change, carry, boom. How are we going to put it there? Monday's this, Tuesday's that, Wednesday's this, Thursday's that, Friday's that. But it's all through that lens than anything else.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I've heard it said by, I believe, John Wellborn, like primal movement patterns, like a very similar type philosophy with that. I guess that's probably where that came from. And a lot of my own training and how I saw training, and as a coach, I owned a gym for years. I owned a gym for 10 years. And the way that I started really trying to train people was how can we make them better movers? Because I started to realize, like, you don't really fail on a back squat because your legs weren't strong enough to do it. You fail to keep your form throughout the range of motion.
Correct. Yeah.
That's what happens. No one just gets there and their legs are like, I'm tired. Right. It's something in the form broke from that. And usually using a back squat as the example here, usually if we take the load off completely and just put the bar on them, the same mistake's happening with minimal weight.
Correct.
And once I realized that, it helped me to be able to train people better and to work on my own better, because the mistakes happen with no load, which you would say they're just bad movers.
Right. But why are they bad movers? Because the body is not giving them something that the brain's asking. Right? The kid wants to walk, he can't yet. Right? He's trying. Development happens at the speed of the nervous system. Think about that.
Yeah.
It's happening at the speed of the nervous system. So if it's not happening, the nervous system isn't letting you have that yet. And more times than not, like the whole he's stiff or he's too tight why is it not giving you that range of motion, right? Because your nervous system is convinced it's not safe, right? Chip's one of the best in the world I've ever seen at return to play with injuries and coming back. And he's phenomenal. It's a work of art to witness. But basically, I love the way he puts it is, there was an insult to this part of your body. Say it's your knee, right? Or your shoulder or whatever. Okay? It happened. But now we're going to make an agreement with that part of your body and your nervous system that it's okay now. And we're going to give it back. Right? And that's how you bring somebody back.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. I think everybody wants it to be more complicated than that. It's not. It's not.
Yeah, just thinking on that. That is a fascinating way of looking at it. I've never thought about that in terms of return to play. And that's huge, especially when you're looking at athletes, because athletes are financial assets. I mean,
correct.
So your ability to take them and bring them back in has to be equally, if not more important than your ability to develop them.
Especially now, you got a guy, he's making $1 million and he's not available. This is not good. Yeah. It's not good for anybody, right? So if there's a way to getting back and available faster, but it's the same thing. I think we underappreciate how, like, biblically, how fearfully and wonderfully made we are, right? It's the most unbelievable organism in all of the universe. Its ability to heal, its ability to learn, its ability to adapt, its ability to figure it out. But then we just give it these blunt force we keep giving it the same test, right?
Yeah.
The sagittal plane, this deal, squat, put the bar here, do the clean, I want to give puzzles, loaded movement puzzles that make you figure it out, right? Because it is an open chain event on the field. Right? Not to say we're not going to do the basics, because a kid that comes in and he's not strong enough, that's what's going to show itself, right? But once you've arrived at strong enough to go out there and be effective on the field, what's next? And that's what the frontier is for me, is what's after that. A really, really strong guy getting stronger isn't developing them. A weak guy, getting him stronger, that's developing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's having the eye to see, what does this person need?
And if you have a really strong guy who is really strong despite being a poor mover, which happens all the time, you're just really strong for whatever reasons. Maybe your attributes are there, but your movement's bad. You have a high risk athlete. There's a high risk of injury at play here because the movement pattern's not there.
Or say he's really, really tough, so he fights through everything, so he doesn't really manifest it as it's like a car with, 700 horsepower, but it's out of alignment.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, it's not going to run right, So it's not like we're doing a bunch of just weird, nonsense corrective exercise. That's not, it's rugged, and it is really, really hard and difficult, but it's different. And it shouldn't be different because it's what we do as people, and, we're in the guy's gym of the world's best squat rack maker ever, but he'll be the first one to tell you that if the end all be all is just happening in that 4x4 area, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
That's the deal.
Explain the pick and shovel.
Okay.
I love this analogy or parable. I don't even know what to call it. It's really enlightening, and I know it. So share that.
It's kind of the traditional sort of strength program or weight room image or logo is like the bent barbell, and then you put the school's logo on top of the barbell, and that's, Gamecock strength, whatever, right? That doesn't do justice of the exchange, the experience that we're trying to have in there. And my whole world as a coach changed when I was working for Chip, and I'm clapping and screaming and being, nonsense and blowing whistles, and thought that that's what it's all about, bringing energy, mid-2000s juice. Does he bring the juice or not? And, I thought that's how you bring value. And Chips is, you had him, he's a smaller guy, quieter guy. He goes, "Hey, Luke, come here." He goes, "The way I see it," and this was the NFL as professional athletes. He's like, "We can help these guys because, they have dreams and goals and desires and, there's purposes in each one of these guys' hearts that they want to do with this opportunity that only 1% of humanity gets." He goes, "But they need somebody to help them interpret it." And so his Chip's kind of scripture that he lived by as a coach was, "The purpose in a young man's heart is like deep water, and a man of insight helps draw it out." So if you arrived on the frontier, the first thing you need is water, right? You need to get down to deep water. You dig a well. Well, what do you dig? You dig for deep water with picks and shovels, right? So that became our sort of imagery, was this pick and shovel of the work we're going to do on you is we want to get first digging rights. You can't just show up and start digging in somebody's yard. You'll hit the gas line. You'll blow everybody up, right? You come in and you start digging on somebody and you say something sideways that they're not ready to receive because you don't have a deep enough relationship. You don't have clearance to say that yet. You're going to blow somebody up, right? So you get digging rights, and then out of that relationship, you start to move the rocks in the way and the nasty stuff and the sludge and all that till you get to the deep water. And it's not just doing hard stuff. That's the experience that we're on, but you dig on people. The pick and shovel represents for us patience and kindness. Patience in the form of the original definition is long suffering, right? It's not waiting in the doctor's office to get your name called. That's what people think patience is. It's the ability to endure suffering for something with someone. So we're going to suffer with you while you deal with this shortcoming in your life. You don't have this part of your life under control, right? You don't have this part of your character under submission. You're doing the thing you don't want to do and you can't stop doing it, right? It's whether it's addiction or it's just giving into something. What is that? And so patience and being alongside somebody. And when you do hard stuff and you share some kind of struggle with somebody, your heartstrings start get to attach. Kindness, not being nice to somebody. Kindness, keep breaking it down. Kin, family. The only people that in your life are family that aren't blood relatives are the ones that tell you the truth. Right? So we're gonna dig for your deep water alongside you as the insightful sort of well-digging engineers, right? For your purposes that's deep down in there with patience and telling you the truth. And that's what that's where the pick and shovel thing came from. Multi-layered metaphor of things, So
yeah, no, and it's powerful. And I remember the first time you told me that, I was sitting in your office, we were just chatting, and you had that shirt on, and I asked the meaning of that.
Yeah.
Sitting here just soaking it in, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like didn't expect to hear that in a weight room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sort of the layer that we've added to it was, and she's a phenomenal graphic artist, and she's kind of done all this work for us, Rachel Sinclair. And we've never met her in person. I've never met her in person, but she's done so many different cool stuff just with man-child stuff and Struggle Well and all that, but then also with this imagery. And most recently, we came out with one that has like flames behind it. It's like this very subtle sort of white flame, and the pick and shovel kind of looks like a sort of a flash came through there, and it burned everything up except for those two tools, right? And that was our thing this season was fireproof, right? Which is another scripture, 1 Corinthians 3:13, which is the day will come when each man's work will be tested by fire, right? And it'll either burn you up or it'll still be standing based off of the quality of your work. And so that was our sort of call to arms is our work, is our relationships, is our program, is our team fireproof in the hardest of moments and the biggest of setbacks and the whatever's going to strike or whatever, just will our tools of our trade, will our work, will our resume, will our body of experiences hold up to the heat that's on. And so that's kind of, now we're going to do this pick and shovel work, right? Which is an old Western saying when something's, man, it's a pick and shovel job. This is really, really hard. Well, is our pick and shovel work fireproof? You know, and so we just keep sort of building on to those types of things. So it's fun because we're constantly trying to have this like really organic human experience to training athletes. That's what we're trying to capture, you know?
Yeah, and football is such a it's a sport unlike any other. And I played a lot of different sports. And wrestling is the one that clicked with me the most, and I love wrestling.
Yeah.
But it's still it doesn't provide everything football does. And football is beautiful in its own way because it's somehow this word has become offensive and you know, whatever, but it's a very masculine sport.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very rough and aggressive and violent sport. Yeah. And wrestling's those things too, but wrestling's kind of, you know, it's one-on-one. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have that camaraderie that you have to have in that team aspect with that. Mm-hmm. It's a cool thing. Something we used to, when I owned a gym, that we used to talk about a lot was mutual suffering. Mm-hmm. We would do this together, and it was we're going to put you in a dead bug position,
right?
You know, shoulders back, arms up,
hold it
there, holding it here, dorsiflexion, and or plantar flexion, and the whole thing was this is mutual suffering. It sucks for everyone, but y'all are going to suffer through it together. Mm-hmm. And just knowing that you have that mutual suffering and you're undergoing that together, sometimes that's just enough to help people keep going. And football is a lot of that, and training camp is a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And what you guys are doing with the competitive toughness, it's using that mutual suffering as a way to create a bond and bring people closer together as teammates.
Yeah. Well, I think I've trafficked heavily in the mutual suffering, almost probably too much. And then we sort of flipping that on, there also has to be time of mutual celebrating. You know, and so but don't celebrate the people that weren't suffering with you.
Oh yeah.
You know, but when you have suffered and then there is a moment to celebrate, it's just that much sweeter.
Yeah.
You know, so those are but you got to make sure you do both. That's what you know, and there's a lot of, I've come back. I didn't wrestle because I didn't want to wear the singlets. Right.
that's the barrier of entry for 100%. Most people. In fact, they've changed it.
And if you can wear the MMA stuff, I'd have done it. You know what I mean?
They've changed it. So now a lot of them you can wear compression shorts and like a tight jersey because of that, because they knew that was such a big barrier of entry.
I know. So my son, and I've got him wrestling, and he just straight up, he hates it. But there's most like these little moments of like breakthroughs to where he's like, I'm glad I did that, you know? And it's just, but it's the difference. Like you said, I didn't feel that in football because it's, you know, it's so individual. You can hide from your individual shortcomings in all these team sports, you know? And that's what I love about wrestling is it's the human movement stuff is just next to none. I told him, he's like, Dad, we'll just work out. Like, you know, why can't we just train? I said, because I can't facilitate a better training experience for you right now at your age than what you're doing in wrestling. Yeah. And then having to deal with, oh my gosh, this person's just better than me and they're physically working me. And you got to own it. You can't say they didn't give me the ball enough. We didn't call the right play. They threw the flag. They should have done it. There's all these things that I wish sort of spend more time hashing out between you and then go join the team.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a lot of kids that are playing football and it's a esoteric, be like, we want to find kids that love football. And it's like, what does that mean? I'll sit down and be like, do you like football? And they're like, yeah, I love it. It's all I know. It's all I know. It's all I've known. Yeah. Okay, well, what do you love about it? And they can't really tell you. And so my theory with that is, right, and it's the same kid that you cannot physically force him to do his math homework, right? And so you're literally pulling teeth to get him through with like student athlete. What's the deal? Well, and I've said this before to Pat Ivy when we were talking one time, was like, I don't know how much kids love football. I think they love how football makes them feel loved.
Oh.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We tend to love the things that make us feel like people love us.
Yeah. For me, that was fighting as I'm thinking about that.
Exactly. Right? Because sort of playing football, just like fighting, the doing of it kind of sucks.
Oh, yeah, it hurts.
It hurts.
Like, you must love getting punched in the face. I like getting punched in the face. Like,
but the memory of it is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's almost like, oh my God, this is so terrible until it's over. And then you're like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, type 2 fun or whatever they say about it. But it's, okay, so why is that? Well, a lot of these dudes that are doing it are affirmation guys, right? When you make a big play, they'll say, right, tackled by Tyler Minton, right? And they're, whatever. When you get the right question on a math test, nobody says your name, right? So you're not getting, you're not literally, and that's the old love language thing, right?
Yeah,
like you're not getting the specific channel. If you want to love me, I'm on channel 2. Like that's my love language.
Yeah.
Like football is speaking into these guys specifically appreciation. And so what are they trying to do? They get that dopamine hit and they want to replicate it, right?
Yeah.
And now we've introduced money to this thing and, it's all different. These kids just want money. No, they think they're supposed to want money.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they go and they get it and they're still miserable.
Yeah.
And they just want deep, meaningful relationships. But it would be irresponsible of me to not be using this talent and being able to make something for my family.
And a lot of times too, they might see that money as proof of love. Like they see that as
100%
proof
of
like
appreciation.
We're going to show you how much we appreciate you by throwing millions of dollars.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, it's another type of statistic. Hey, you led the league in sacks, right? And you feel some kind of value in that, right? But if you put a monetary value to leading the league in sacks, then man, they think even more of me. But it all goes back to like, right? Just somebody love me, please, for the love of God.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's an interesting way to look at it, like from a love language standpoint. And then you look and have to ask the question of, when you look at linemen who don't necessarily, especially offensive linemen, some of that, they don't get that really. Like no one's announcing that was a great block by so-and-so.
They only call their name when they get a holding call or they jump off sides, right?
Yeah. So it's like, I wonder if they're different, like maybe people who gravitate towards that, or it's something that to make better linemen, find a way to do that, find a way to love them stronger and love them harder.
Because they're some of your most relationally driven people on the team, because otherwise what are they doing this for?
Because they're doing it so the other people get their name mentioned.
But they're like, if I'm not gonna have like great friendships or great human interactions out of this thing, literally what am I doing this for? And so you've got to really tap into making this sort of tribe mentality, this group that of belongingness, that there's a ownership and a pride and a affection for each other to be in that group. And then you define our group is like this. We're going to be ultra physical and nasty and tough and all that. And then, we're a little bit manipulative. If you want to belong, be that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's another ancient thing.
Yeah.
You know?
So I want to talk about synergy. It's a word I've
Okay.
used a lot in talking about you.
Yeah.
And something that I think lacks, especially when it comes to nutrition, among other specialties,
Okay.
among
Yeah.
other portions. And I've seen it in football, and now even working with NFL guys. Like I really thought, like once I started working with it, this will be figured out in the highest level. No, it might be worse.
Yeah.
And that is synergy between the different individual staff, synergy between the nutrition protocol and the strength conditioning protocol and the return to play and the actual sport itself, the coordinators.
Yeah.
And I've repeatedly been disappointed and shocked at how poor that synergy is. And I don't know if it seems to me like everyone else has it, but nutrition's oftentimes just not. And I'll speak from the standpoint of a dietitian. I think a lot of times it's the dietitian's fault. The dietitian doesn't see, maybe it's because they don't understand the sport itself, or maybe they don't take the time. They don't take the time to understand the strength conditioning side enough. But I think one of the ways that can be improved that I have seen in every sport, not just football, is for the dietitian, the nutrition side, to be a part of the weight room, to be in the weight room and to see what's happening and to talk to the strength staff and talk to them about what they're seeing in guys' numbers and seeing in guys' performance and being on the practice field and seeing what that looks like. And I think that's something that's missing and I know we've talked about this a lot. It's missing in the dietetics profession, because the dietetics profession, as it relates to team sports, is much more of a food model. It's a home ec model rather than a performance coaching model. And I don't know that I don't necessarily know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how it needs to be fixed. I just know it needs to be fixed. And I think step one might just be dietitians understanding that and recognizing it. And I can say the sport that I have seen it improve at the most is with the UFC and with the coming of the UFC Performance Institute, because they're not just feeding the athletes during fight week, but they have a hand in every little aspect. Like they have to know every little thing. And I don't see that much in other sports. And I think it's vastly important because those conversations need to happen.
Yeah.
And even in my own experience, you might hear, well, this player needs to be this weight. So this player needs to be this way. And a lot of dietitians might be like, okay, cool, they'll lose weight. Like, well, no, your first question needs to be why.
Right.
Like, why do they need to be that weight?
Yeah.
And you'll see that with football. We've talked about that. Like a coordinator might be like, well, I need this player to be 220 instead of 240.
Right.
Okay, well, why? Well, at 220, they're going to make more tackles.
Yeah.
Like, are they? Like, I don't know. I don't know that. Like you've made an arbitrary number up and you've associated that number in your head with a performance metric.
Which what you saw a guy that played really well, and you want that to happen on your team. And then you looked up what that guy that played really well weighed, and then you've assigned it to that person. Right?
Yeah. I think that really is it.
I think going back to what they're not on the same page, or the disconnect between different departments and stuff like that. That's not a modern sport problem. That's just a human problem of like a failure to reconcile your own insecurities, right? As things that make you feel vulnerable. And so then you project bigger and you become territorial, and then you become self-important, and then you tell everybody how your thing that you're in charge of is making the big difference, and everyone else should back off, and you know the most, because you might lose some ground if you were to listen more than you talked, or you were to, okay, I didn't think of it like that, but I think it all goes back to like, you're not connected with this person. And people can say, well, it's, just be professional. I don't believe in that at all. Like I see these people and I'm with these people more than my family. Okay. And the interactions that I'm having with these people are directly and drastically impacting what happens to my family.
Yeah.
So if that relationship is not deep and meaningful, we will not do deep and meaningful work with each other. We just won't. So like, I've never been like, oh, I can't stand that guy, but we'll get the job done. Yes, that's possible, but not as well as it could be. It's just like that whole thing. You all don't have to like each other, but you will respect. Yes, respecting is the minimum, but you kind of should have
it's all
a
easier if I
fondness
like
for
you.
each other, 100%. And that way you give up, you can drop some of the ego nonsense and be like, you're right. Because it's impossible that I'm always going to be right. And it is impossible that you're always going to be right. And is our relationship strong enough for the other one to identify when the other one is wrong and it not become a deal breaker? But that's not possible in most cases, in most environments. Why is that? Because we won't let our flesh be submitted like that. We just won't do it. You know what I mean? Like, me and Chip, we throw down 3 times a week. I mean, it's unbelievable, but it's because our relationship can take that punch.
Yeah.
Can we go there? Can we go into that endeavor of disagreement and it's not a dismissal of each other? And so I think what you're saying is you see all this. How deeply connected is the dietitian with anybody? Vice versa, with the strength coach, with insert name here. Like, you can't just do this on a superficial level and have to perform at the pressure that this thing is asking. I think you're saying, and then I thought of it like this, when you're saying, I have seen it go well at the Institute with the UFC. It's because there is something that has to happen. They have to make this weight or they can't fight, right? And then Dana White's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? So everybody's putting that aside because this is the thing. Strength coaches, when you ask them, hey, what do I got to do this year that would make us, like you said, the strength staff had a good year? No one knows. There's no specifics to it. What does the dietitian in a football program have to do to where if you do this, you've done a job well done? It's opinion.
Yeah.
Right? So then when something is loosely defined, then we have the luxury of getting offended. The Institute doesn't have that luxury.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that way let's put all the nonsense aside and who's the best and who's more important and all that nonsense, because there's a thing that has to get done. But I want to do this thing with you because I like you. And you can get over a lot of stuff that is such a waste of time. But why is it a home ec model? Home ec model because you want someone to like you. And these kids like eating garbage.
Yeah.
And so if I throw this stuff at you, out of my insecurities, you'll like me. And I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's with everything, man.
Yeah,
it's with
it is.
everything.
You see that a lot with the team environment. And I sit in on a lecture once with I won't say their name, but it was a big name. She was a big name in college sports.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking in this lecture about how important that home ec model is, and how some of these athletes will have it'll be their first time that they've been exposed to those food options, and how you need to respect that and how important that is for them, and how, like, hey, they might be able to afford and get food now that they couldn't get before because maybe they come from a low socioeconomic status family.
Right.
Like, I get that. And I raised my hand already knowing. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, with all due respect, I kind of disagree with that. And you could tell this person was not used to being disagreed with.
Right.
I was like, at the end of the day, your goal is not to feed their emotions. Like, you're not a guidance counselor for food. You're not a an eating disorder counselor. Now, if you have an athlete with an eating disorder, become that, wear that hat.
Right.
But your job is to help them win, and that's it. You have a college athlete, you have 4, maybe 5 years with them to help them win a national championship. And the rest of their life, they will either remember that they did or they didn't. They'll remember that they were winners, that they were losers in different games. They'll probably remember the games they lost just as much as the ones that they won. They're not going to remember the food that they had during that years that maybe they hadn't had before.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at any given point, these athletes can choose not to be athletes and choose to be normal people and do what they want, but they've chosen to be athletes.
Correct.
And as a practitioner, as a dietitian working with high-level athletes, your job is to do everything you can when they're in your grasp to help them perform. And if that might mean taking away the pizza bar, the whatever bar, it might mean taking away the unlimited waffle bar and just feeding them what they need. And at the end of the day, you can't control if they do that and then they go and still do that anyway.
Correct.
But your job is to give them the best options and the best path forward for performance and to help them win, and that's it.
Yeah, facilitating someone not performing at as high as they could because that's the way they grew up you're enabling them.
Yes.
And you're helping them be worse.
And a lot of people, they're at this college playing the sport to escape maybe what they're trying to escape the life that they were limited by.
Asking someone to exercise discipline is not mean.
No.
In fact, I would say the opposite. To say you're too poor and traumatized to be expected to be disciplined is cruel.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. And that's the nature of it's like woke performance.
Yeah.
Like almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's where it's like, oh, well, you can't ask like someone of that side, not to go off on a tangent, but like we did some work back in the day when I was at Marshall with Angela Duckworth, who wrote the grit research.
Okay.
Right? The long-term passion, perseverance towards something. And there was this big New York Times piece like bashing her of how it was almost sort of racist, right? To ask someone that's been through all these terrible things and traumatic stuff and poverty and all that to say you just need to have more grit is it's inhumane or it's cruel or it's to say just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you'll make it. And it's such a limited view to say that, right? Now you're not doing this. You're not doing this without understanding. You're not asking someone to not eat this thing and then call them a big fat piece of crap or whatever. You're saying, look, I understand you probably grew up with this, right? But is this going how you want it to go? Right? Yeah. It's just like me, like, man, you don't understand like what I came up with and all this. Yeah, I don't understand. I did not have that experience, right? But what do you want to do now? Should we just, that's it? The end. Your dad died. The end. Right? And now your life sucks forever and we should all just pity you because that happened. Or what's next? And then you are now offering them a new horizon of hope. But on the other side of it is going to be difficulty and pain, but you are not victimized. The biggest research that she found to make somebody more resilient is make them feel like the masters of their pain. Trauma is the randomized violence that you don't have control over, right? It's the alcoholic, abusive, whatever, and you're just hiding in your room, right? So your brain will shut off the part of it that felt that pain. It's also the same part of your brain responsible for empathy and love and care for somebody else, right? So you can't not feel pain and have a full human experience. So we'll interact with players that have had traumatic events. But usually it's the kid, oh, he's selfish. He's a bad teammate. He don't care about anybody but himself. Of course, because his life experiences have suggested to him that life is terrible. You can't do anything about it. it will randomly just show up and try to hurt you. Get yours while you can get it, while the getting is good. You turn them into a cutthroat. What Duckworth's research is, and what we try to put into effect is, you can unwire that synapse. You can rewire someone's brain by giving them micro doses of pain that they're in charge of how much pain that is. Okay? Look, we're all going to crawl right hand, left leg, left foot at the exact same time, and we've got to make it to there. If we don't make it, we're going to start over. Well, if you guys can organize yourselves and communicate and keep your knees off the ground and be uncomfortable for this, it'll be over, right? And so then, and you just get faster and faster and faster, you become the master of your fate again, instead of someone else made you feel like they were in charge of that. So you can take them out of trauma via taking them through experiences of overriding how they feel. That is the whole reference point thing. That's the biggest gift we can give kids in training, to me.
No, I like that. And that is because it is. That's one of the beauty of sports. It can take people who have a bad past, and it's their path forward, their path out of that.
Exactly.
To sit there and bottle them up as their past is doing them a huge disservice.
Exactly right.
That one last question for you, because you've already mentioned some ways that you've changed and new thoughts and stuff that you had. If you could go back and change anything about maybe what you used to do, like the early days of you as a strength conditioning coach, what were some of the biggest mistakes that you would say you made then that maybe someone who's new to strength conditioning, you're giving them a leg up to kind of skip this phase that you might have went through?
Just say less. Say less. You can be excited. Screaming and yelling at someone probably doesn't work. It makes you feel like you did your job. It makes you feel like you were powerful and you were, I'm instilling discipline and we're going to but if you can't, one of my big grow up moments was when I was willing to scream and holler at a freshman, right? But then the next year when I was working for the Bengals, I wouldn't think about doing that to AJ Green, right? And so if I won't do it with him, how cowardly of you to do it because you can. So that I think just treat people decently. Not that I'm like, I tried to do well with that, but been an idiot sometimes too. And then listen, like facilitate the training and then say, is this working for you? You know what's going on here? Do you understand what we're doing here? Because the illusion of coach and player charades where I say all this stuff and I get all my coaching cues out and I scream and holler and all that kind of stuff, and they say, yes, sir, and we're both pretending that something happened. They're pretending they understand it and know why they're doing it, and I'm pretending that I'm making an impact, and neither one of them's happening. You know what I mean? And then there's not less. So that's sort of like the coaching, like relational suggestion I'd say to myself or to a young coach. Excuse me. The tactical stuff would be like, stop making a progression out of everything and let them find it. Like landing mechanics aren't real. Like stepping off a box, landing, it's not real. It's not. You know what I'm saying? Stack up a limbo bar or a bunch of pads and make them run and jump over it. Like play. Facilitate play, and their body will figure it out. Stop acting like you're the answer to the human psyche, to the human mechanism of movement. And my stupid little plyometric progressions are going to teach them everything. Just make a move. Make them move fast, make them move slow, make them try. Like, here's our speed program. Try real hard, move real fast. And you'll get faster, right? Load it, give them some rest, unload it, progress it, start short, go long. And for 2 years in a row, we've had the fastest football players in college football in a game, miles per hour wise. Because when you treat someone like a human being and you train someone like a human being supposed to move, you take the brakes off of what they can do neurologically. Because more times than not, you're putting parameters on people that don't need to exist because you think it makes sense in your head on your Excel sheet.
Yeah.
It's so much more organic and beautiful and complex than we try to make it fit in our stupid little speed development days and boxes. Just let people move, man. You want to make somebody agile, play tag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Really.
Like, we could otherwise, but it's not, oh, do we do enough cuts on the right and on the left? Give me a break, dude.
Wow.
Give me a break. So it's all, stop taking yourself so seriously, those types of things. So that's all I got, man.
Well, man, it's been a great season for you all. And I've been privy to kind of, through our relationship, I've been able to kind of see behind the curtain in some ways. So I tend to agree with Coach Beamer that a lot of the success of the program does fall on the hands of strength and conditioning, the strength and conditioning staff. And obviously as the director, you know, that's your baby and your monster that you've helped created. And I think that you are in a large part responsible for the success and the great season that you guys have had.
Well, thank you for that. That's very kind of you. The director thing, sometimes I wonder, like, what do I actually do? Because, you know, Chip does so much of the programming because he's got the most experience on it. Why wouldn't we let the most experienced guy have the final say on what it is? Now, we'll work things out and we'll fight things out, you know, but like Jameel Walker is so unbelievable with relating to these players and digging down deep with them and telling them when they're wrong and supporting them when things go wrong for them, you know. And he was a head strength coach at Arkansas. Jameel was fantastic. Mitch Oakey and Nate Sedigan. It's like, really, I'm just kind of like, what was the guy's name that smoked the cigars in the A-team? You know, drove the van.
Goodness gracious.
Mr.
Murdoch.
T was B.A. Baracus. I'm Murdoch. I just love it when a plan comes together. Yeah. You know what I mean? I literally have the A-team, you know, but I'm not the biggest guy. I'm not the strongest guy. I'm not the most talented guy, but I got all those people on the staff. I just let them do their thing, man.
Well, man, even that, there's a lot of people who wouldn't have wouldn't allow themselves to just sit back and let that form.
If you could deal with yourself, you can put together some really beautiful stuff. Yeah. But if you don't allow yourself, if you can't kill your ego like that, then you'll always surround yourself with, yes, on purpose, you'll surround yourself with lesser people.
Yeah.
So that you can feel more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we've been able to have some tremendous success on the field, off the field, in the weight rooms because of the people. The old Woody Hayes thing, man. You win with people.
Yeah. We are doing it right. And again, congratulations on a great
brother.
Season. And
thank you, man.
And a bowl game coming up.
Yes,
it'll be done when this airs. And then you get into the next phase of getting to develop the next season.
Let's do it all over again. Yeah. Congratulations on this. This is super cool. Man. And you're doing it up, man. The Truth Serum.
Truth Serum.
I love it.
I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks
yes,
for
sir.
coming on.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you guys for watching, and also a word of thanks to our sponsors who have made this episode possible. All I ask is that you guys please hit the like and subscribe button, as it helps the podcast grow, and so we can continue to bring on some great guests for you guys. I'll see you in the next one.